Okay, so okay, welcome everybody. I think this is like number 56. We're so happy to see you, and it's an interesting day to make a Zoom gathering, but our topic really fits right in with the times. Today is a fast day. It's Yud Zayin Tammuz. It's Shavar Tammuz, 17th of Tammuz, a sad day in the Jewish calendar, leading up to the destruction of the temple. In 3 weeks from now, we will commemorating Tisha B'Av. The destruction, the full destruction of the temple happened on Tisha B'Av. We've also experienced as of late, in the last 3 months, very sadly, 3 destructive events amongst our people. Very devastating events. First, we had the crush in Meron, where we lost precious Jewish lives. Then we had, a month later, Jerusalem, where there was a collapse and people were sadly killed.
Why is my...
Everyone could just mute, that would be great. I'm going to mute everybody. All right. Okay, and then we had, sadly, just a few days ago, what happened, and it's currently happening in Miami, in Surfside, with the collapse of a tall building with many precious souls inside. It's with heavy heart that I'm even, and to bring it up, to talk about it, but how can I not talk about it? How can I not, collectively, we are in pain, we're experiencing very, very sadness. Our hearts go out to all the victims, their families, their friends. May we yet experience miracles. The Israelis have arrived in Surfside, and if anyone can do something, it's not too late, not too late. One of the Israelis this morning said that he was in, I forgot, in Mexico, maybe, or another country.
Haiti, I think it was Haiti. After 10 days, they found
Haiti,
somebody.
yes, in Haiti. And he found somebody after 48 hours that survived and lived.
But there's already more than 48 hours.
No, tonight it's 48 hours. Tonight it'll be 48 hours, I believe. No, not 48 hours. I'm sorry, 100 hours. They said it was 100 hours.
10 days. I think it was 10 days.
I thought you said 10 days.
Maybe it was 10 days. Okay, you know what? There's hope. A person can survive. If God wants, miracles can happen also. It doesn't even have to be, we just have to hope and pray that there will be some miracles and that we will be able to celebrate at least some of all of them. Hashem should just bring them all out of there and back to their families. We don't understand why things happen. Why do we have to experience tragedy? And guess what? There's no way to understand Hashem's ways. If we could understand Hashem, what kind of God would that be if we'd understand what he was doing? But he sees and he knows from the beginning of the universe, and from the beginning of time until the end of time, he knows and he sees and he understands why things happen. We have to just pray that we get a glimpse of sometimes understanding, and that only comes later with hindsight. We do know one thing though, as Jewish people, we have a response to tragedy. The response to tragedy, like the Rambam says, you can't look at tragedy and say it's random. It's just a coincidence. That would be cruel to do that, because then people would never understand. Then it would, like, you could expect terrible experiences every single day and you never know when it'll hit. But Hashem has a plan, and everything is for a purpose and everything is for a reason that we are not able to understand. We do have
You want your phone?
a way to respond though. What do Jews do when we have tragedy? We have to come together. We have to look at our structures. We saw the falling of structures. For us, we look at it and we say, what is the lesson in here? We have to look within. We have to look at our own personal structure, the way we run our lives, the way we lead our lives, the way we make our decisions. We have to look at the structures between ourselves and our loved ones, between ourselves and our friends, our community, our neighbors, and we have to strengthen all of our structures. We have to strengthen our bonds, our connectiveness. We have to reach out to each other, do more for each other, show that we care for each other. Hashem loves that more than anything else, that we care for each other, that we do for each other, we reach out. That's what a parent wants to see between his children.
I'm unbiased.
So tonight, with great pleasure, I'd like to introduce to you Elly Rubin, her lovely daughter, Sharon Basomsky. I believe she's here tonight. Yeah, there she is. And her sister, her lovely sister, Lya Frank. Oh, maybe we're related. I'm Frank. Anyway, they're here with me. They're all right here. I'm going to turn this around in a minute for the whole talk.
Hello,
But
everybody.
there's Elly and Lya, and they are going to be here tonight. They don't have to see me anymore. Let them see me. Just adjust it however you think is best if you're centered.
Are you okay?
So they will be sharing with us their miraculous story, a story of hardship, but also of great survivorship, but also thrivership. They thrived, and they have come to this great country, have built, I only know Elly's family, but beautiful Jewish homes. And ultimately, that is a poke in the eye to our enemies, that we go on and we continue no matter what they throw at us. And Elly and Lya, please share with us tonight. Thank you for coming. Thank you so much.
Thank
It
you.
means a lot to all of us.
Thank you, Till, for having us here. We didn't really prepare anything. The story is the story. We are both child Holocaust survivors. Fortunately, we were hidden children. Fortunately, in a bad time, we were not sent to Auschwitz. We have a story to tell, but we were hidden by different people, different families, righteous, gentle. And that's our story. Here's my sister.
Hi, everybody, and thank you for tuning in. I'm assuming that some of you have already been to the museum and possibly even heard my or our story before, but the story is the story, but it's always told in a little bit of a different way, just so we don't get bored with our own story. My name is Lya Frank.
Can't hear you. Maybe you muted yourself by mistake.
What happened? They're muted.
Okay. I'm trying to get on this at the same time. Try it now. Should be good.
Okay.
Cyril,
Can
put
you
it
hear us?
closer to them because it's not loud enough.
Not loud enough, Jill.
It's at full volume.
The volume.
I'm going to get closer to you.
You know, they can't see it.
Oh, you have to adjust that. Okay.
No, what I mean is that
The picture is very unclear. The picture of them is
Okay,
not
I
good.
gotta figure this. I thought it would work this way, but it's not.
Shall
Okay,
we sit on your side?
I'll have to just turn this off.
It works better, we'll sit by you.
Okay, we'll change these if we need to. So is this way, it's not coming, I'm going to pin it. See, is that too dark?
It's pretty dark.
It's dark? Okay, so just come over here then, we'll move you around.
Okay.
You know what, it's okay. This is all very,
It's all good.
Better?
It's a little cold.
Okay, so I'm gonna turn off this thing.
Oh, now I can see myself well.
Okay,
Good job.
so you want us to start over again?
No, keep going, keep going. Yeah, whatever.
Okay.
I don't know from when on you couldn't hear me, but let me reintroduce myself. My name is Lya Frank, and I was born April 17, 1936, into a very traditional Jewish family. And for my third birthday, April 17, 1939, I received the best birthday present anyone can ever wish for, and that was her. So we were born on the same day, just 3 years apart. And that is my introduction, and I'll let Elly take over from there, and I will fill in
Okay.
as you need.
Well, things in May of 1940, the Germans invaded Holland and made all kind of restrictions for the Jewish people. That in the beginning it wasn't so bad, so people thought, oh, you know what, we can live with it, so we can't do everything. But as the years went by 1943, things were very, very tough, and a lot of people had been grabbed right off the streets and sent to death camps. So my father worked for a Jewish firm, and his best friend also worked for the Jewish firm. He wasn't Jewish, and he was told, you cannot have Jewish friends. If you associate with Jews, we have to let you go. And he was let go, but he and his wife went into the resistance. They were both very good friends of our parents. So they suggested that we all go into hiding. My parents wanted us to all hide together, but they wouldn't hear of it. They said it was too dangerous. So the girls should go one place, or two places in this case, and my parents would go another place. You can go on.
Okay, so the day of our birthday, 1943, which was April 17, 1943, was actually the last full day we ever saw our parents. The day after, we were picked up by these friends, whom we called uncle and aunt. We were put on the back of bicycles, and we were told that we would be going away for a few days, and we would see each other again soon.
So
Right, soon. And that soon, of course, turned into never, but we didn't know that at the time. And being that these were good friends of the family, personally, I don't think it was that traumatic at that time, because we were going away for a few days with people that we knew. They took us to a transit home where they would keep the children for just a few days until the resistance organization would find us, in this case, us, some case, other people, a more permanent location to where people would want to keep us for longer than a few days. So Elly will tell you
well,
where she was placed.
I was placed in a few homes, and they weren't comfortable with me staying there because I'm still dark, but that's, dark eyes, dark hair. And in Holland, if you were dark hair, dark eyes, you were Jewish. Lya was blonde, and she did not look Jewish according to those rules. So not everybody wanted to take a chance with me. As a matter of fact, I went one place. I was 4 years old, and this is what I was told. I wet the bed the first night I was there, so they didn't want to bother with me. I was 4 years old. Yeah, whatever. But anyway, I was ultimately, they found somebody, I guess a friend of the people that ultimately took me in, had a boarding house, knew somebody who had a boarding house. She was a teacher, and they asked, would you by chance know of somebody who would take in a Jewish child? And there was, thank God, that this lady who ran the boarding house had children, and I went with one of the daughters. They already had a big family. I think they had already 6 kids, but they had a child that was exactly my age. And ultimately we were told we were twins. We were like 1 month apart. We were good friends. And I stayed there for 6 months until it became too dangerous for me, because the Germans, they were right off a highway. They would just walk off the highway, invaded the property, and it was too dangerous to be seen at that point. And I'll let Lya take.
Well, tell them where
Yeah,
you went.
so then it was suggested I would go with the sister of the lady of the house, who lived across the street, but it was across a waterway. You had to take a little boat to get to it. And you could only get the boat if the boat was on the right side of the river, so you could go to the other side. So I ultimately went to the second home, also large farmer's family, and they also had 5, 6 kids already, but they loved to have me, and I stayed there till the end of the war.
And beyond.
And beyond. They were poor in means, but they were rich in love, and they just loved me. I think sometimes they loved me more than their own kids. That's how affectionate they were with me. Go ahead, Lya.
For me, like Elly said, it was a little bit easier to find a home. I don't know how easy, because there was the punishment was death penalty for both adults and sometimes even the whole family if someone got caught hiding a Jewish child or a Jew. So people were not exactly lining up to rescue Jews, but they located a wonderful family for me. And because I fit right in with the Dutch population, I was with a family who lived smack in the center of the city, Amersfoort, which was maybe 30 miles away from the city where we were born. It was a doctor's family. He was an ophthalmologist, and his wife was the doctor's assistant, the medical assistant. The practice was in the house. They had one of those big houses where you could have a medical practice and still have space to live. They had 2 daughters. One was 1 year younger than I, and one was exactly Elly's age. So here now, all of a sudden, they had 3 girls, 1 7, 1 6, and 1 4. And they had a housekeeper, because 3 kids could not be alone during all the medical practice hours. But the housekeeper had to leave because of travel restrictions. So they hired another young girl. And that was possibly the only time that I was in any danger of being betrayed or denounced. She cornered me one day and riled into me and said, "What kind of parents do you have? How come they never call you? How come they never come to see you? There are never any letters from them." And Elly, we didn't mention that at the very beginning of the invasion, the Germans had bombed the city of Rotterdam flat, completely flat. They intended to bomb the harbor, the port, but they missed the port and they bombed the inner city flat. So those that survived, there were hundreds of people killed. Those that survived had to flee the city, and they were called evacuees from Rotterdam. And that's what I had to tell her, that I was an evacuee from Rotterdam. That's the only thing that I was ever told to say if anybody ever asked me. I'm an evacuee from Rotterdam, and I don't know where my parents are. And I have no clue. And then at night, I had to tell my hiding parents exactly what happened, because had she followed through, I might have fallen down on the job or not kept to my lies or whatever. So I had to tell them, and of course they were very happy or very proud or very glad that I had not misspoken, because they would have been annihilated. So that's when I got the only candy that was left during the war. I was probably about 8 by that time. So
You know, there was always talk in the little, I was in a little village between Amsterdam and Utrecht. Utrecht is where we were born. Utrecht is maybe 30 miles from Amsterdam. So I was kind of in the middle. It's all farm country there. And a lot of the people are related to each other. But there was gossip in the village. Do you know there's a Jewish child being hidden somewhere? And so they started searching for the Jewish child. And where I stayed, it was like, his name was Jan Jr., but his father and mother were alive and they lived down the street, down the road. So they searched the parents' house many times, but of course I wasn't there. But later on, they got smart and they came searching, and there was, rumor they're gonna come to the farm and try to find the Jewish child. And they already had people hiding with them who didn't want to go into the German army. So they sent those people out in the field, hiding under haystacks so that they wouldn't be found. But he told me later, he says, I could not put you under a haystack. You were 4 years old. So she said, I said, well, where did you hide me? She said, I didn't hide you. What did she do? She prayed. She was a very religious woman. I imagine she probably said Psalms. But she said, I prayed to God, the God of Abraham, that's our God, just like it's your God. And they stopped one farm away from the farm where I was at and never came in. Breaks me up when I talk about it. Go ahead.
My people were very, very wonderful people, but completely different from our own parents. Our own parents, and I was a little bit older than Elly, so I have a few more memories. My parents were not religious, traditional, but my grandmother was always there. My maternal, I'm so used to telling my story that now I say but it's our grandmother was always over at the house. She didn't live with us, but I was not even her first grandchild, but she taught me how to read, how to write, how to do arithmetic, R. And that was good for me during the war because I could keep myself and the girls a little bit occupied. So why did I say that? The people were completely different from our parents. Our parents were outwardly demonstrative, hugging, kissing, whatever. Affectionate, like a lot of Jewish families are anyway. These people were loving, but not physically touching or, so that was the first adjustment, of course, that I had to make.
It was opposite of the family where I was. They were very affectionate and very loving. And well, I really didn't know there was a war going on. I was 4 years old and I had good time with the other kids. So I was, with the chickens and the cows and the whatever they had, the goats, and they had an apple orchard. We could pick the apples, and we had to be careful when I was outside, but on the whole they were very, very good to me. Amazing. And I'll tell you later that we kept in touch for many, many years.
I was allowed on the street in the very beginning until someone from our own city recognized me on the street. And I heard this later, that I pretended not to see him or recognize him, and he pretended not to recognize me. Had he been on the wrong side of the equation, he could have denounced me, but he went back and somehow got in touch with someone in the resistance, and word came back that Lya was no longer allowed to be on the street. So from then on, luckily they did have a somewhat of a backyard, but we were never allowed to go downstairs during office hours because, like you all know, a doctor has to treat anybody and everybody, and I was not allowed to be seen. Most of the time we adhered to those rules, but we were 7, 6, and 4, and then 8 and 7 and 5. We didn't always adhere to that rules, but one time I was caught sitting on the lap of a German soldier. I don't know if he was a Nazi or not, in the waiting room. Maybe because he thought I was cute, but I don't know why I got so stupid. But I might have been 8.
I want to say something about our parents. Our parents were offered to be hidden by these friends of theirs. They insisted they stay with them. Had they been there, had they accepted, they would have survived the war. Because they didn't go there, they took in another couple, a very religious Jewish couple, and they stayed there, I believe, for 3 years. They cooked, she was telling us later, for Pesach, it was the potato, onions, egg holiday. That's all they ate. And they made some kind of sukkah for them on sukkahs, and they survived. But our parents wanted to be with the rest of the family. My parents had, my father had 3 brothers and a sister and a mother. My grandfather passed away at a very young age. He was holding a child. They say he was holding my father, but he was hit by lightning. That's how the story goes. He didn't survive. The child survived. So my grandmother was left with 5 kids. And they were not people of means, and they probably could not afford to have help. So the oldest 2 boys, my father and my uncle, who did survive, were sent to an orphanage, a very strict Orthodox Jewish orphanage. And they were treated very well, and they got their education, but they were away from the family at the time. When the war broke out, I mean, they both were married already, so they all wanted to be together with my grandmother in one place. Well, I think it was two places, right? It was two
Two
places,
neighboring brothers.
two neighboring brothers, and it was fine. We have some paperwork where they made drawings and they played chess and check whatever they could do during the war. But a stepdaughter to one of the families had
A romantic
a
relationship.
romantic relationship with a Nazi. And if you turned in a Jew, you got paid. You got paid $7.50 for every Jew you turned in. And there was money to be made. She turned in 7 people, and they were picked up by bus and sent to death camps.
Westerbork.
Westerbork, there was an internment camp. Ultimately, only one cousin survived. Our parents did not survive. My grandmother did not survive.
The uncles.
The uncles, the young uncles, the aunt, nobody survived. We have all records of, they don't even know exactly where they were killed. Eastern Europe, Auschwitz. In the end, it doesn't matter. They were all sent to death. And ultimately, this person, after the war, I mean, they found her, but she got, for the 7 people, I think she got 7 months of jail. That was it. Right? Go ahead.
6
Lya.
months, and then I guess somebody something intervened, whether it was whatever, and she died.
Right. We got some intervention from higher up. So in the end, she
But
didn't live a
that
long
did
life.
not bring the people back, of course.
Right.
So after the war was over in May 5th, 1945,
That's right.
we were liberated. And I can only tell you from my experience, the trucks and the tanks and the jeeps rolled in with the Americans, the Canadians, the English, the Jewish brigade, and everybody was very happy. And do we have a time limit?
No,
Oh, okay.
no time limit.
And
People are all free to come and go as they please, so there's no time limit, and I'm here.
Okay.
so I was allowed on the street, which was exciting in itself. And then to see all those.
I was allowed on the street, and I was able to go to church with the family.
But I'm talking about the first few days after liberation. We were all, flags came out and families could go visit each other, and I was allowed on the street. And the soldiers gave us white bread, which nobody wants to eat these days, but we were very happy to get any bread. They gave us some chocolate and chewing gum and cigarettes for my hiding father. He was a doctor, and it ultimately killed him, of course, but not in those days. And I can only tell you that jubilation lasted a few days, and then I said, okay, now I'll wait for our parents to
I
come
just want
back.
to interject something. When my parents were taken away on, I think it was a bus, right?
Yeah.
On a bus, my parents threw out a postcard, and all it says, we have the postcard. Somehow it ended up at Neighbors, and it said something, everything went wrong. Please take care of the girls. Yeah, breaks my heart, yeah. Please take care of my girls. And we have the postcard. It was written in pencil, and somehow that survived. It came back to us. I think the museum would love to have the postcard, but we haven't been able to part with it yet because it's a real connection to my parents.
All you've got left.
Yeah.
You've got
But as you know, so after the war, Lya will give you more detail. Things weren't that easy. We were liberated, and Lya was found first, I think, and she was brought to me. She was introduced to me, but she didn't recognize me. Lya, you can tell that story.
Well,
Yeah.
our one surviving uncle, besides the two of us,
Oh, he wasn't with the rest of the family.
he was in the very beginning, but his wife, who apparently had a little insight, she also wasn't that fond of the family. They decided to go their separate ways, and they were hidden for almost 3 years in a stable up in the north of the country, and they are the only ones. So he's the only uncle that survived. They had one daughter when they went into hiding, who was hidden when she was only 2 years old, 2.5 years old. And 2 weeks after liberation, after having been 3 years in a stable, they had another daughter. She was born May 19th, 1945. And so they had been heavily traumatized, of course. But my uncle found us, and then he took me over to where Elly was, asked permission to take me over there. And like she said, I didn't recognize her at all, but after an hour, we got as close as we had ever been. And to go back just a little bit, we had always been so close that when I first came to my hiding place with the doctor's family, they gave me a big, beautiful room with a bed, and they came and said goodnight. And I was 7 and maybe 2 weeks old. And they said goodnight, and you'll be safe here. And of course I started to cry, and they said, why are you crying? And I said, I don't want to sleep alone. I want to sleep with my sister. Because she was born on my birthday, and we always slept together. I mean, Holland wasn't 8 bedrooms and 5 kids and 10 bathrooms. We had probably 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom, and we always slept together. So just as an aside, they moved the bed the very next day to the girls. And for 2.5 years, or well over 2 years, the 3 of us slept in one room. So I didn't recognize her when I first saw her, and then we became very close. I didn't want to go back. I said, I'm not leaving, because then I'm not going to see her again for 2.5 years. So arrangements were made between the 2 hiding families that I was to be transferred over to them. Parents number 3 for me. And again, different. Very loving, super religious, large family, not a lot of money, which didn't matter to me as long, but there was food, so that was good. And I had my sister. So I stayed there.
About 6 months.
Yeah, about 6 months until
the housing was, my parents had to find housing, and
step parents,
step parents,
uncle and aunt.
Uncle and aunt.
So, but we did keep on asking, when are they coming? When are our parents coming? Because nobody knew what had taken place. Who ever heard of gas chambers when you're 4 and 7 years old, or 6 and 9? So, and people didn't know. So one day, her hiding mother, whom we by then called Tante Cor, or she called her mother, but I called her Tante Cor. She called us in and said, come girls, I want to speak with you. I'd like to speak with you. Come into the front room. And that struck me as an oddity, because the front room, the parlor, was only used on Sundays. and only used for organ playing and
Bible reading.
Bible reading and
Yeah, it was a religious room. It was a Sunday room.
and so that struck me as odd that we were called into that particular room. And then we heard the news that our parents, in her beautiful vocabulary, said, yes, we just found out your parents have gone to heaven. And, you know, heaven to her was a different idea as heaven to me, because she'd been with this religious family for well over 2.5 years. And of course, I knew more what heaven meant in this case. So you can take it from there.
Okay, so ultimately we moved from our hiding places to Amsterdam. And my parents enrolled us in Jewish schools.
Your uncle and aunt.
Well, yeah, okay, uncle and aunt. Well, ultimately they were our parents after the war. But we went to elementary school, was called Rosh Pina. And after Rosh Pina, we went to Jewish high school. And after that, the whole family immigrated to the United States. We had to wait for somebody to put up affidavits that we wouldn't fall into the welfare system, which we never did. They vouched for all of us. My uncle and aunt put up affidavit. They lived in Chicago. They said, go to California, because once we retire, we'll go to California. They lived in Chicago. Ultimately, they didn't. They moved to Florida, but that's another story. But we went to Los Angeles, and
How old were you at that point?
I was 18, Lya was 21.
So you spent a number of years in
Yeah,
Amsterdam.
and that, you know, it was a difficult household to be in, because my stepmother mentally was not well. And ultimately, the kids suffered. All of us suffered because of that. She had suffered a lot during the war, and I guess it just hit her. And it made it difficult for all of us, especially the older girls. The two of us and her older daughter had at times a very tough time with her. And especially the two of us, because the two of us were kind of thrown into the family. My aunt wasn't asked. My uncle said, we're taking in the two girls for my brother. And my aunt did not have a choice. She could not say no. She wasn't, no, because my uncle wouldn't allow it. So she had suffered. So she had 2 kids. All of a sudden she had 4 kids. And she had suffered a lot, and her mental state was weak. And my sister was more affected by it than I was, but somehow we stuck together as sisters. And there's a Dutch expression that says, 4 hands on 1 stomach. In other words, we were so close that nobody could have interfered and broken us apart. We were close, and because of the situation in the family, we stuck together and protected each other without realizing it through the years. Right, Lya?
I think so.
Yeah, your turn.
The people that put up the affidavit for us, everybody knows what an affidavit is. It's like a bond.
Right.
And that was an aunt by marriage who had been married she was married in 1940 to our mother's younger brother, Max.
Right.
And it's an important part of the story, because they were married in 1940. She was 21, he was 23.
And they had known each other like for 3 years.
More, 6 years. 5 years or 6 years. They'd known each other for a long time, but
the parents needed to give the approval and all that. Ultimately, they were married for 6 months.
And then they were walking in, they lived in Amsterdam. And they were walking on the street, and the second raid took place, and he was ripped away from her arm, sent to Mauthausen, to never to be heard from again. And because she and many of her sisters, she came from a family of 6, they all survived because all of the siblings had been born in England, so they were not sent. They were picked up and sent to Westerbork, but then they were sent to France, not to an extermination camp, but to kind of an exchange camp, which never happened. But after the war, of course, she remarried. She was 24 or 25. And her mother-in-law was our grandmother, obviously, because she married our uncle. And she's the only one that could fill us in and give us many, many more details that we had not known because we were so young, but she was 21.
Yeah, my mother actually had a sister, a married sister, also did not survive, had 2 kids, and they were also taken to death camps. So that the whole family was wiped out.
So my aunt remarried after the war, also to a Holocaust survivor, but also had been in the exchange camp. And they were married, but they always accepted us and regarded us as their nieces, just like from her own side of the family or from the second husband's side of the family. We were always the nieces. And as a matter of fact, she passed away almost a year ago at the age of 101.
Right. Very good.
And we
woman.
went, the 2 of us went every year at least twice to visit her. Because she was a wonderful person, but also we always got stories about our families.
Yeah,
She's the
because
last one that knew.
she moved in
Firsthand.
with so much for mother-in-law. She moved in with her mother-in-law, which was
The
our
other way around.
grandmother, and they were very close. They loved each other, you know, so.
So that's how history goes. And so we immigrated to the United States, and for the rest, you know, we all got a job. All of us got married at one time or another. I got married in 59. Elly got married in 62. I married another survivor who was older than I am. And Elly married a Canadian. Well, you could tell your own story.
Right.
And we started our families, and she's got a way bigger family than I have. I have 1 daughter and 2 grandchildren. And you know,
But you might want to talk a little bit about the hard time we had after the war. A little bit.
go ahead.
But you know, when the war is over, you think, okay, we can go on now. But now they say it's PTSD or whatever they call it. But nobody, after World War II, there was no such thing as therapy. They said, go on with life, forget what happened. It wasn't offered. And unfortunately, many people needed help, but nobody got it. So as we got older, a lot of people, thank God I was in a way too young, so it didn't affect me as much as it affected my sister. But after the war, she says Holocaust started all over again because the feelings of loss and survivorship had to be dealt with, and there was nobody to talk to. So eventually, you know, help was offered and therapists were, you know, available and to help the people. And people still need help to this day because it wasn't offered when it was needed. this came so much later in life. So now it's creeping up, and unfortunately, as we get older, it's you know, it's prevalent again, you know. So my sister suffers from that, and it's very hard. So, but she makes the best of it.
Well, there was also the thing, not only were therapists and psychologists, they had it by the wrong end. Whoever was available had it by the wrong end and said, forget about it, which is ridiculous, because how can you forget about 6 million people having been murdered?
Well, we had 3 generations that were totally wiped out, and
A large family.
yeah,
But there was also in those days, if there was anything available, until many years later, there was this kind of a stigma attached to it, to having to look for help, having to look for a psychologist, psychiatrist. Or, I'm not crazy. The people used to say, I'm not crazy. I don't need a psychiatrist. And we weren't crazy, but there were many of us that were suffering from PTSD or whatever name you want to give it.
anyway, I just want to mention on another note that we had all the people that put us into hiding, people that hid us. All these people were honored by Yad Vashem. They got the Yad Vashem award, but not only that. When we had the simcha, and I can speak for myself here, when we had the simcha, when my kids got married, they were there. I mean, the man in the family passed away at a younger age, but the lady and people in the community might remember if they were at Mark's wedding or Sharon's wedding. This lady was invited, and she spoke, and she grew up with the children. We have pictures where she's with my grandchildren, and for many years, every occasion, it was by Abshernis, by bar mitzvah, by weddings, and now we're in touch with the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th generation of these families. When we go to Holland, that's the main purpose, to see these people, and everybody knows our story. It's being told to the next generation. We're like, when we go there, we are treated like queens, because we're like special guests of honor by these people, right? So you want to
Both sides, both families.
right? Yeah, we're very lucky in that way that we have that connection. A lot of people, I imagine, lost touch with the hiding families, but we didn't.
No, we always made it
A point.
to losing words. We made it a point to stay in touch and be grateful and be thankful. And I mean, both my hiding sisters and their husbands have been here to visit. I used to go every year, but now the pandemic. But other than that, we see each other every year. Thank God for WhatsApp. We can talk. I know all their kids, and I know all their grandkids, and my grandkids know their grandkids,
Right.
and your grandkids know their
Is
grandkids.
there a question and answer?
Whenever you're ready for it, you can take questions at any time.
You want to take
Yeah.
questions, or you want to talk some more?
No, I
Okay.
have nothing more to say.
Okay, well, you can always add as you go, but if anybody would like to speak, ask a question, just unmute yourself and pipe, just pop in. Okay, I'll ask a question, so nobody's asking right away. I don't know if you can hear me on this. Okay, so,
You want to come sit
Will you-
behind us?
She's
They don't
fine
need
with
to
it.
see me.
I'm fine.
She's
They don't need to
fine
see
with
me.
it.
I'm okay.
When she says you're okay, she's okay.
I don't think they need to see me anyway. They see enough of me. Okay. Okay, so, hi, everybody. So I had a question. Did you remember you were Jewish during the time that you were in hiding? Or did you just go along with the flow of the family? And did your parents ever inculcate into you any feeling that you have to remember
No.
that you're Jewish?
I remember just saying my prayer, a prayer before going to bed, on my knees, just like the other kids.
Just like the other kids.
Yeah. I guess maybe when you're 4, it's.
Yeah, no, you know, and it's not, you know, I'm not asking, I'm just curious.
Yeah,
I'm not
right.
judging.
But, you know, I can tell you something interesting that I found out not that many years ago. Every summer, we were invited for 2 weeks with the people that put us into hiding. They were awfully kind people. So we would pack our little bags and go there for 2 weeks, because the home that we were in was a difficult home, and there it was like a very pleasant home. But she told me that must have been the Pesach vacation, because I came with matzah. And I don't remember it, but she said, I remember you came with matzah.
Wow.
So, but I know, of course, we went to Jewish school also, you know.
But
So
when you were 4 years old.
no, I mean,
Afterwards,
after the war.
afterwards.
No, after the war.
Yeah.
After the war. So I mean, I guess the family, the way they raised you, the families inculcated into you the need to be grateful. Maybe that was part of the religious upbringing you got from your adopted families. Is that, I mean, a lot of people, like you said, would not necessarily be grateful and keep in touch.
Well, don't forget that I had a very good time with them.
Right.
I really, in a way, didn't know there was a war going on. I was restricted. I couldn't go here or there, but I wasn't, you know, God forbid, there's cases where people were raped and abused, and
yeah.
had to run away. We had a girlfriend who had to run away from one place to the other because she was being abused. I lived in peace in the little area on the farm, you know, so
Tranquility.
yeah, there was tranquility, you know, which was nice. And I was really loved. They were affectionate with me, and just like with the other kids, you know, so it was good.
That's really
You know, there
really
was
big,
nothing,
huge process.
you know, whatever, they were Christian Reformed,
Dutch Reform.
Dutch Reformed, and the Dutch Reformed, it's known that more Dutch Reformed did good things during the war. It was their belief in, you know, in doing the right thing. So,
But an ironic thing is, and I know from Elly too, that when both her hiding parents had passed away, or maybe even before, but I can say for me, when he died earlier, and then when she died, I got a letter from the girls that I was in the will.
You were in the will.
I was also in the will. I
Wow.
got a gift
Before she died.
before she died, and she said, I want you to get something for that. And she gave it to me around the end of the year. So I said, I really like a nice menorah. So I went and I bought a menorah, and I sent her a picture. She died Hanukkah time. That was just amazing that this happened, you know. So they were unique people, absolutely unique people, and very grateful that we've had that, you know. So, but
Nobody, we must have done a wonderful.
You guys have no questions?
I have a question.
It's Susie.
I have a question. I don't know. For Sharon's mom. I'm sorry. I don't look so good. Can you hear me? I'm
Yes.
Dahlia Cohen. I'm Dahlia. I'm the dentist. I don't know if you remember me.
oh yeah, I remember you. Yes,
Yeah,
Dahlia.
it's such a pleasure seeing you. First of all.
Thank you.
And yeah, really, Baruch Hashem, your story is so moving. I never knew you're a survivor. You're such an amazing lady. I remember you from more than maybe 30 years ago, from Simcha Monica.
You're the dentist, right?
Right. Yeah. When I was engaged or I was just married, we'll come to Simcha Monica, and I would see you there. I think you were with Rabbi Levitansky. You were close to them.
Right.
Are you from South Africa?
No, she's from
I'm
Persia.
from Iran. I'm from Iran. Not
Oh,
Persia.
No, close by.
Yeah, I have a very peculiar accent. Anyhow, you know what you said. Really, I was davening while you were talking. I was saying to Helen, what you said about the fact that your hiding mother said that she davened, she prayed, and you said they didn't come to. I mean, they didn't come to search for you, and they stopped by the farm before. It just shook me up, really. I mean, I don't think I'll ever forget what you just said, and the power of davening. It's incredible. I just wanted to say that. Really, I mean,
It's amazing that this kind of comes back to my life at this point, you know, the power of prayer. You
But
know,
this is
because-
non-Jewish prayer that
No, but the
succeeded.
prayer is a prayer, you
doesn't
know.
matter. Doesn't matter. I really don't think. I mean, it really. I mean, for somebody, somebody who. I mean, they're righteous. They're righteous. They're obviously she was a righteous, right?
Well, she used to say, it's not, it's unfair what they are doing to the Jews. We all have the same, is the sound on? Because I see, some- it's
Yes.
the- we pray to the same God, the God of Abraham.
Yeah. Oh,
That's what she said, that she used to say that to me.
She was praying to the same
And I
God.
tell you something, I forgot to say that. She passed away, and I said, you know, I want to go to the funeral. It's of course not next door, it's Holland. And I think it was in the 90s. So I went by myself, and I'm thinking while I'm going, what can I say, you know, to the family. So they picked me up at the airport. And what happened? They said to me, my condolences with the loss of your mother. And I was totally thrown. That they really considered me. They call me on my birthday. The kids call me on my birthday because I'm their sister. To this day, I get calls on my birthday from them.
And you were only there with them 4 years?
2.5
Oh,
years.
2.5 years.
Yeah.
2.5 years, and they could still.
That is many years ago. Like 80 years, almost 80 years ago.
So to me, that's a message that we really have to really cherish all our relationships.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
But these people,
And never take anyone who's done anything for you for granted. I mean, 2.5 years is not very long,
But
really, in the scheme of things.
Under the circumstances, it was very long.
Very long.
but you know,
I have-
in my case, you know,
Well,
they saved
you.
they saved one child, and I have, thank God, Shem, I have a pretty nice big family now, you know.
Growing.
So, yeah, and growing.
Growing.
So, you know, like they say, who saves one soul, you know, saves the world. It kind of comes back. I'm back to those 3 generations that are lost. And that's the best gift.
That's. Yeah.
Baruch Hashem. Nice talking to you. I'm gonna mute
Yeah,
myself.
thanks, Dahlia. Take care.
I have a question. I have a
and
question.
And I do too.
Please,
All
go
right.
Too.
ahead, Sharon.
Okay, who wants to go first?
I'm
Sharon,
gonna ask.
I heard.
So did you have any sense of reconnecting with Yiddishkeit? I mean, you were
Who are you asking?
taken away from your home, so I'm not sure what memories you could even have. But when you came to America and as you were growing up and you had an increasing awareness of being Jewish, what, I don't know.
Who are you addressing the question to?
I don't know, both of you. I'm not sure how to.
You want to go first?
I'm not sure I understand the question. So can you repeat the question?
Excuse me, Sharon,
Yeah.
I think you missed something. They went to Jewish schools before they emigrated here to this country. Once the war was over, her uncle and aunt put her in
Oh.
Jewish schools. Isn't that what you said, Ellie?
You're
Yes.
right.
Yes.
So they knew a lot.
Adjustment after
Okay.
spending with families.
Okay. Thank you, Miriam.
Sorry, yeah, you,
Jewish
No, it's-
May I ask my question now? My name's Talia. I'm in San Francisco, and I wanted to put it out to both of you. Your stories are amazing. I was blessed that somebody hooked me up with that, but I wanted to know, I've been to Amsterdam many times, and I always have heard these wonderful stories about the Dutch people helping out the Jews. And did you ever think when you grew up, like, why did they want to help us?
I asked my hiding family, what made you take a chance like that with having such a big family? And they said, I even asked at one point, I was very good with them. I said, did they pay you to do that? He says, pay you what? We did it because we wanted to help the Jews. It was unfair what was happening to the Jews. Period. End of story. That's why they did it.
That's amazing.
And my hiding parents, because I also asked them, and they said we did it for humanitarian reasons. So it just couldn't stand by idly by while others were being murdered and persecuted.
Right.
And I did a few years ago. There was I belong to the child survivors of the Holocaust.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We both, I'm sorry, I'm so used to speaking alone. She's included in everything I say.
That's been clearly evident, the love you have for each other. Don't
That's
worry.
good. We're good.
The Child Survivors of the Holocaust published a book, How We Survived, 52 Personal Stories. And a few years ago, there was a book presentation in the bookstore on Larchmont. I forgot the name of the bookstore.
Yeah.
And it so happened that my youngest hiding sister was here visiting me.
Wow.
And so I said, do you want to? I was supposed to read a small portion of my story, to get people interested in buying the book. Not for me, but we published like 5,000 books or something like that. Anyway, she came with me, and she was duly impressed with how the people behaved and everything. Then afterwards, people came over to her and they started thanking her. And she says, it was just funny. She said, hey, I was 4 years old. I had nothing to do with it. Maybe you can congratulate me on the kind of parents I had.
That's a beautiful thing.
Very nice, because
Thank
she had
you.
special parents.
You were very blessed, both of you.
Well,
Thank you.
we sure were.
Right.
We sure were.
We still
We
are.
both are a miracle. That's really what it boils down to. Because,
It gives new meaning to Mesiris Nefesh. Gosh.
and
That's
the
right.
righteous Gentiles, we have to remember the world is full of good people. And
Gotta thank God that there's still decent people in the world.
Yes.
Amen.
Well,
We know that. We
the
know
expression, the righteous Gentiles, they recognize them, from
yeah,
Bad
we know
Hashem.
focusing on the negative stuff.
But my grandson went to Israel, or my grandchildren went to Israel, and I have pictures of them standing by the trees that were planted for them
Wow.
in Yad Vashem. And that was very moving when I got to see that.
Wow.
Yes. Then they know the stories,
I have a question. Am I allowed to ask a question?
Absolutely.
Are you Sharon Ostomsky?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Sharon.
I know the answer to the question.
Oh, look
I know
who's
the
talking.
answer to the question, but I think it would be nice for everyone else to hear it. I think
Okay.
it would be nice if you spoke a little bit about your relationship today. And because you spoke about how you were close when you were reunited during the war. So I think it would be nice for people to know what your relationship is now.
Okay, I can take care of that. You can take care of. I tell you, I always say we're very different. We don't look the same. We don't have the same religious affiliation. We don't have the same political views. We don't have the same fashion styles. We dress differently, we behave differently, but when it comes down to it, we're very close, and we know each other. We don't really argue. If we want, we give our opinion. It might not be the same. Doesn't mean you don't get along. You respect each other, And that's it. When Lya will say, can I go like this to Till Franco? I said, what are you talking about? You go the way you are. You don't pretend to be anything you're not. I told her today. It's a big difference.
Sharon knows I don't pretend to be anything but what
And
I
I
am.
don't pretend to be anything else either.
No, we don't
I have a
pretend.
lot of,
But we see each other once a week, except for when the COVID was here. We have lunch once a week. We talk every day and we discuss, we share, there's no such thing as just because you're a little different that you shouldn't get along. We got wonderful. We don't argue. We love each other and that's it. We still sleep in the same bed when she comes over. Not in bed, but in a king size bed.
You could finish each other's sentences.
The first time I came over for the weekend, he said,
Devorah Wilhelm, mute yourself. Devorah, mute yourself.
Any more questions?
I have a
Yes,
question
I would like
I'd like
to
to
know.
ask. Can I ask a question? Hello?
yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Hi, it's Meyer Den. Meyer Den's calling from
Hi,
Dallas.
Meyer.
How are you, Ellie? It's a long
You're
time no
from
see.
Houston?
I'm glad to see you. You're looking so well. I'm so glad to see.
Thank you. How are you doing?
Thank God. Thank God. We're in Dallas, Texas. And
Yeah,
I
I
wanted
knew
to
you were-
ask you, you've seen a sort of a full circle here where you've lived to see a time in history where things were so dark, and we see a time now that it's come back around to which potentially could be a very dangerous time again for Jewish people in the world.
Right.
Look around Europe, you look in the United States, even you don't look so far, you look in the United States, you see it every day now. I'm just curious to know if you think that times have changed in the way that you had people from the old world at that time who maybe had more different kinds of values. And I wonder if today, if it comes down to it, do you think there'll be upstanders today who will do the same thing if the need arose to help other people in a time like this?
Well, to tell you the truth, I'm an optimist. I tend to really look forward to good things. I think that there always will be people that were helpful and that are kind, and we just have to recognize them for it. I know they're difficult times, but I really believe that I don't think that it will happen again. Some people say it could all happen again. Like I say, I'm an optimist. I look at the world in a different way, in a more positive way. And I think people will stand up and help myself. How about you, Lya?
Thank you.
I don't know. My sister might have a different view, man.
no, I do have a different, I am different because she's the optimist. I am
The realist.
No, pessimist.
The realist.
pessimist, realist, whatever you want to call it.
Oh, yeah.
I don't always see the half glass full. I also don't always see it empty. But I believe that there will be upstanders. And there's many of us that are speaking in musea and for groups and for classrooms and for the police force and for the firemen and for all kinds of groups. And many of us emphasize, and the way I always end my talk, which is mostly for students, and I don't speak for students younger than about 14 years old because they don't get it. And I find that they're maybe a little too young to really get the meaning of it. But I always end my talk with the fact that my life and Elly's life, no, my life, her life was saved by people that knew people, blah, blah, blah. My life was ultimately saved by a student organization who was instrumental in locating people that had the courage to hide Jewish children. And those were students that were 18 years, 19, 20, early university. Why did they do it? Because they endangered themselves and not their families because they were not married and they did not have children. So many of them were executed, were caught and killed. But ultimately, my rescue was through the student organization. So when I end my talk, and I will end it, you guys are not students, but you probably have children that are students. Students have a lot of power. And if they use it for the right purpose, for the right goal, for the right meaning, they have a lot of power and they can be upstanders rather than bystanders. So
Very
that
well
is
said.
that is my opinion, and that's how I always end my talk. Because
Beautiful message.
That's all of us.
right. So
So how do you think we could be upstanders today in light of what's some of the things that are going on? Anyone have any? I know that's a hard question.
it's a difficult question. I do a lot of talking, and that's the message I give. I mean, I can't go out and fight.
Every one of us has to find a way to make
I
a
think,
tiny,
yeah.
tiny difference.
You know, whether you do it by supporting someone or being empathetic to someone or being there for someone that's going through a difficult time, or all of us are going through difficult times and we always need other people to help us get through it.
You have to strengthen the structure.
Yeah, Ellie?
Hey,
Yes.
everyone.
Wait. Ellie?
Yes.
It's Miriam Fishman.
Hi, how you
Oh, wait,
doing?
this looks like a grandson there. Can you say something about how Chabad, how your lives changed when you encountered Chabad when you were living in Santa Monica? Because that's when I met you. I think Sharon was 13 and
That's
your son,
that's actually
give
a
or
funny
take, if you
story.
remember.
We were looking for Talmud Torah for the kids. We had Rabbi Katz on this side of town, but the kids, we said they danced on the tables. They didn't dance on the table, but you know, there was chaos. So we were looking for something in Santa Monica, and they had an Evening Outlook newspaper in Santa Monica, and there was an advertisement one day that said, check us out for Hebrew school. And, you know, I figured something in Santa Monica. We lived in Santa Monica. So I went there and I met this man, this white shirt, beard, hat, black pants. I had no idea what I was looking at because I was a greenhorn at the time. You know, I had no idea. And it was, of course, Rabbi Levitansky. And I took one look at him. I didn't know what to say. I said, if you're fanatic,
Wrong place.
I don't want anything to do with you. And of course, he laughed. Ultimately, that quote went into the calendar. He married our kids. He was there for everything. But at the time, my family, my extended family, thought we had joined a cult. We supported him. We went on a cruise to nowhere, didn't leave the harbor. But ultimately, when the kids were, I mean, to keep it straight, when my kids learned something at Chabad, and we weren't Shomer Shabbos, we were kosher, but not Shomer Shabbos. The kids learned something. I did it at home. Whatever they learned, I equated that to doing the same thing at home. So I learned right along with the kids, and we gradually became more religious. And we didn't drive to shul anymore, and we walked and we lit candles. But I hadn't been brought up with that because we didn't have a kosher home where I grew up. We didn't keep Shabbos. We had Friday night meal. After the war, you know, I don't blame anybody, but that's the way it was. I didn't see it. And when I got married, the first thing my husband asked, the only thing he asked of me, he said, will you keep a kosher home? I said, if you help me, I'll do it. Because I really didn't really know the ins and outs of doing something like that, you know. So gradually I learned.
You learned fast and well.
On the job.
I learned on the job. I learned from my kids. I learned from the surroundings, from the rabbi, and ultimately, as the kids, kids went to Jewish day school and whatever. I learned along, and this is what happened. How did I become religious? It took years and years. It wasn't overnight. You know it, Miriam.
I think Yona has a question.
Oh, okay.
Hi, Yona.
Is he still there?
Where's Yona? Sharon, where's Yona?
He has a question, I believe. Hold on, let me see if I can.
Yeah, I saw his picture before.
I didn't.
Yeah, I did. Open your
You guys
camera.
looking for me?
Yeah.
Hi.
Hey,
How's the fast?
the fast was really good. We broke it on cinnamon buns. It was very, very good. Thank God.
Why don't you introduce?
Great recipe.
Yona-
Yes, my name is Yona Bastomsky. I'm a grandchild of Oma and Tante Lya as well. Like almost, she's part of the family. And I had a question that was asked on the chat here by Joanne. It said, what was the name of the organization for you, Tante Lya, that the student organization that you were referring to?
There were two student organizations, was the Students of Amsterdam and the Students of Utrecht. And I believe mine was the Utrecht organization from the university.
I don't know if
I
Joanne's
don't
still
really
here.
know if they had an official name, because nothing was really official. The less people knew, the less could be betrayed.
So Yona, you also have a unique perspective because you were with Oma, your grandmother. You went to the house where she was hidden. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
I did do that actually. Yeah, it was that was a really cool experience for me. I was in Holland for a few days, and I'm muted. Am I muted? No, I'm not. Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, I was in Holland for a few days, and I took a car from our family friends, Vera. We took a car down there, and we checked out the farm. I just knocked on the door.
Unbeknownst to me. First you had lunch with me.
First, I had one of the best lunches I've ever had, the croquettes. But the restaurant is no longer with us, unfortunately.
No, you didn't come up in enough.
It's a very sad story. If anyone wants to open a restaurant, Amsterdam is in dire need.
So tell me about your visit to the farm.
So we went to the farm. I had an obscure address that somehow we got lost a few times, but we made it there. It's right now, I believe it was a dairy farm, but it was actually a beautiful, beautiful area with like a little river going through, more of a stream. And we got there and I was like, oh, is this the right place? I don't know. And I just walked up and knocked on the door, and some guy came out, and super nice guy. And we started talking. I said, hey, do you mind if I just check out your house? My grandmother was here during the war. A little bit of a funny question for him, but sure enough, he let me in, and it was really cool. And then I actually video called Oma to see how she recognized it, and for her to point things out to me. It was really amazing.
I want to add to that. That farm is now a two-family home, and the only Jewish person of the city lives there. A Jewish lady with kids. And I said, next time I'll come with candles. And the next time I did come with candles. Wow. And I very carefully, no. And I went, the woman wasn't there. The man is not Jewish. And I said, I would like to give your wife something, and I have candles. And I didn't know what he would think, that am I crazy or something. I said in a pamphlet about candles, and he was so grateful. And the following time when I saw her, she said she got it, and I don't know if she lit or what, but she married somebody from the village, but she's Jewish. the only Jewish person in the city. Well, I
Yeah.
was hidden.
Yeah.
In a village. So it's kind of what goes around comes around. Yeah, comes around
Wow.
goes around. Any other questions?
Nothing new under the sun.
Can you tell us how you told your children about your background and your experiences?
Who's asking?
Frederica. I'm Frederica. I
Who
live in
would
Los
you like
Angeles.
to address that to?
Whoever would like to answer.
Okay, well, I introduced the lady, I call them my hiding mother, immediately to the family, to my family. She became part of our family. I told the kids when they were small that I was adopted, that, that we lost our parents. It was right away. It wasn't any official time that I told them. It was just part of their upbringing. And saved Oma's life, and so it was a great.
Please mute yours. I'll just mute them. Someone's in the kitchen with Dinah. I can't find it. Okay, please, that's all.
Okay. So she was part of the life of my life, and a very important part of my life. So it was not all of a sudden, this is it. The kids grew up with her. They were part of the family for many years. As a matter of fact, one year we went to visit, and I had a coin made up and engraved with one who saves one person saves the world. And we gave it to her, handed it to her as a memento of what she did.
I gotta find all. I just gotta.
So,
But what's the question? What was the actual question?
The question was, how did you tell your children, basically, about your early life and what had happened to the rest of the family?
yeah.
You're not talking about how we introduced them to our hiding family.
Oh, yeah.
So, well, I'll give you that side of the story. I was married to a survivor who was a resistance worker, a resistance fighter, Jewish resistance fighter, and ultimately got caught and ended up in Bergen-Belsen, which he survived. He was from Austria. I'm giving you a little bit of a background because he, like I said, he was older than I was. He came from Vienna when he was about 17. And they sent him with a group of Palestine pioneers to Holland to work for a farm, to work for a farmer, and then ultimately be able to go to what is now Israel, but was then Palestine. Of course, that never happened because Holland was occupied. And after a few years, he had to leave the farmer because he was being betrayed. He ended up in Amsterdam. He was smuggled out of the country to France by the resistance movement. And I don't know, through sheer luck, one of the high commandos there asked him, don't you have some friends that would like to work for us here in France? You're such a good worker. And he said, oh yeah, I have lots of friends, but I don't have the papers. I can't travel. I can't go back. So he got somehow, he looked very Aryan. So maybe they didn't even know that he was a Jew, but he was a full Jew, big blue eyes, and he was very blonde. And he spoke perfect German, of course. So ultimately he got the right papers and he went back to Holland and to the resistance organization. They were not happy to see him. They said, what are you doing here? We just got you out of the country. But then he was instrumental in getting a lot of people out of the country because he had the right papers. I'm telling you this because his experience was totally different than mine, but so was his way of dealing with it. I was married 11 years before I ever knew what he had done during the war. That's how he didn't talk about it. And when I confronted him and I said, you know, that's really not right. You should have told me. One of his friends in Holland, when we went to Holland for the first time, said, you know, you're married to a hero. I said, really? You tell me about it. Anyway, then he told me what he had done. So I said, that's not right. And his answer was, I live for today and tomorrow. It's too long ago. Nobody's going to believe it anyway. So why think about it? So I was a hidden child. I mean, our daughter knew that we were Holocaust survivors, obviously, and she met my hiding people and everything, but he never really talked about it. And I can only tell you that I was in the same school with the same students for 8 years, and nobody talked about their past. At that time, we just didn't. We wanted to be normal. But how did we deal with it in our own family? It was like casual. She knew I was hidden. Eventually, of course, she knew about her father's story when it came out. But when she asked him to come and speak for her school, Lincoln Junior High, I still remember, the history teacher asked her if her father would come and speak. And I was never in the picture because I was a hidden child that didn't really count. No. And he would not, he said, I will not speak because the kids will not understand it anyway. No.
But for many years, when you were hidden,
you weren't recognized.
You weren't really recognized because because there were people that had been to Auschwitz and the death camps and came back. So what we had gone through was nothing, kind of. So we didn't really do anything. It was not important, you know.
I mean, our kids knew about it.
Right, but not on the outside.
We didn't talk about it.
Because we were the lucky ones. We hadn't gone through anything much. Basically, that's what they said, you know. But
thank you both.
You just lost your whole family.
Right.
I mean.
Right. Any more questions?
Easy ones, please. No?
You have any pictures of the family that you lost?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I have one more question that wasn't addressed. My name's Talia. I'm from San Francisco. You said you're half Sephardi and half Ashkenazi. Do you cook in which ways do you cook with your families?
In what way do we what?
Cook, because you said you're half Sephardi and half Ashkenazi. So does that influence your current day life?
No.
That was me.
No, I'm sorry. Wrong person.
We're Ashkenazi, but if you talk about cooking, every so often I make Dutch style food for the family because they like it. They like the idea of Dutch dishes.
What is a typical Dutch meal that you'll make?
One pot meal.
Vegetables,
potatoes,
stews and soups, certain soups that we didn't know about gefilte fish, never heard of that. Holland, we didn't know. Right, but that wasn't part of Western Europe. It is more Eastern Europe.
Not gefilte fish.
And gefilte fish, we had herring. If you eat the Dutch herring, you won't eat the gefilte fish.
You're right.
And if you're asking about cooking, don't ask me because I don't do a lot of cooking.
So my last question is, how old were you when you both came to the United States?
I was 18, Lya was 21.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And I'm still only 39.
Yeah, but
How did you both master English so magnificently?
oh, please. When I hear myself talk, it's not so magnificent, you know.
No,
you know
we
what?
had very good schooling.
Yeah.
Very good schooling.
Did you have a background in English from Holland?
Yes.
We had to study French, German, English, Hebrew, and Dutch for 5 years.
Right.
The only thing
Oh,
that really
God.
stuck was English and Dutch. And French. and
Thank you
German.
very, very much, Elly and Leah.
You're
Were you,
welcome.
were you going to show us a picture if you have? Do you have any pictures?
How do we do that?
Just put it up and flip. Here, like this, just put it in front of the.
Oh,
This-
wow.
Lya, me, I'm on the left side with the dark hair. And I imagine about 2 or 3 years old, and Lya was 6. Lya, you have
Wow.
You're not 2 or 3. More than that.
Yeah. Okay,
I think you're older than that. But then again, you're tall. So maybe.
okay. How do I do this one? Oh, wait.
Yeah, just here, give me the book.
Oh.
Put the book right up in front. You can just, here, like this.
Oh,
But there's a shadow.
That's your parents?
yeah,
Those
that's
are-
my-
Get it right.
you can
Wow.
see that I look like
Oh, my
mother,
God.
and Lya looks like her father. And this is probably the last picture taken of all of
Put it on
us.
side and-
Wow. Wow.
There you go.
Did you have other siblings or it's the 2 of you?
Just the two of us.
That was enough.
That's great. That's great.
Well, you know what? I mean, this is what it was. We had cousins. No, nobody survived.
Yeah.
We're the only ones in the family, and my uncle survived. He died at a very young age. He was like 62, I believe. He was an angel, but he was the only survivor of our family.
And he died actually as a direct result of the Holocaust
Yeah,
because
sure.
of his nightmares. He had a heart attack in his sleep and another heart attack and he was gone.
Right.
Thank
Everybody-
you.
All survivors of the Holocaust, there's something left in them. It left a mark. It left a.
We all have a tick.
We all have like a scar.
A scar. Yeah.
And believe me, we all have a scar from the war, unfortunately. And
But you both brought so much to the world. You've given so much back in so many different ways through your lives, the way that you've lived your lives, the way you've shared. Even sometimes to be courageous enough to share your stories with the younger generation.
Took 40 years.
For 40, there you go. I mean,
It took
that's
40 years.
Oh,
to-
it took 40 years. Wow, it's hard. It takes
Not until
tremendous courage.
1993 did I.
Because you have
even
to
come
reopen all those wounds, and that's
Right.
painful. And many survivors just couldn't do it. I think when Steven Spielberg started his Shoah Foundation and they started interviewing people, slowly people started to agree to do it because they saw everyone else was doing it, and it gave them courage to do it
Right.
also. But it takes tremendous courage to do this, to go and open up something that you don't want to face again. You left behind as best you could because that's the only way to survive and move forward. And you're doing it for the rest of the next generations, that they should be able, that they should understand what happened, so that it does not happen again.
That's the only reason we are doing it.
Exactly, but it
Not
takes-
only our next generation, but the world next
Of
generation.
course, of course. That's what we do. We're not worried about our children perpetuating such an atrocity. We got to make sure that the rest of the world recognizes that this is in.
Thank you so much for sharing. Wow.
You're
Wow.
welcome. And I hope that it was informative.
When you came to the US, did you both continue your education or did you start to work right away?
We had to start to work right away to support the family. I imagine, we could have gone to night school, but we left the house like at 7 in the morning and came home dead tired, but 7 at night, all busing all over. And None of us went to night school, anything. We just got a job, helped support the family because immigration was very expensive and nobody had money after the war. So we had to rebuild and support each other.
And
And
also,
you got married soon after you came here?
I got married in the end of 59 and we immigrated in May of 57. So it's
Oh, that's very close. Yeah. Mhm.
2.5 years. But also don't forget our schooling, which is way, way harder and more difficult and more challenging than high school here. I compare it to between a bachelor and a master's, but it wasn't recognized in the United States. So we would have to start all over again, and that was not for me or for her.
Well, we had gone through hard times and then going back to school and working and doing everything just was not
But
what we chose to do.
It
you
was a
know?
different generation anyway.
Right.
Most
a
women
lot of people
didn't
did, but
didn't
we
go to
did
school.
not.
A lot of women at that time didn't even go to, I mean, a lot did, but many, many fewer than today.
Right.
It was still a time when you could be a proud housewife. And
You
didn't
could
have
be
to-
what?
A proud housewife. You didn't have to feel like you were less than because you didn't.
Right.
you know,
I
share
wasn't
in front the
thinking of
world.
that. I was just thinking of not having to study.
Well, I want to thank you so much. This has been,
Bless you.
what can I say? It's a poignant and touching citizen
Bless you.
on such a day, especially appropriate to hear your stories, to share your stories, and may it be God's will that we never, ever, ever in history of mankind ever put other human beings through what our enemies put the Jewish people through.
Amen, amen.
Amen. God bless those families that saved you.
Thank you.
Yes, and
God bless them.
be full of righteous Gentiles and righteous Jews.
Right.
And Mashiach should come, and the world should be a place of love, peace, and understanding and kindness. And no man should ever raise up a sword against another man.
No parent should ever have to give up their child.
Oh my God.
Oh, yeah,
And
our
not
parents-
knowing
Our parents had to
happened.
give up their children knowing that they
imagine that?
might never see them again.
That's much worse.
And they didn't.
And they didn't.
Yeah. Wow.
Thank you so much. God
Thank
bless you
Thank you
both.
very much. God bless you.
Good night.
Good night, everybody. Good night.
Thank you, Cyril.
Thank you.
You could say some of the dinner my daughter made.
Thank you, ladies.
Good night. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night. We're gonna have next week, we're gonna have anybody who's here still that would like to be added to the list to be invited to our future Zooms. My cell phone number is 323-244-6213. My name is Cyril. Just ask me to be added to the Zoom invite list.